Glad that you're with us. So we are now recording, and you can tell people who aren't able to come that there is this recording. Get in touch with SBCAN, and we will share with them uh, on our web. I guess it's on our website. Is that right? When or on YouTube? Um, anyway,
Uh, yeah, we can post it on YouTube or send a link to people who are interested if they just let us know.
okay. So the first thing I want to mention is that our general procedure for these roundtables is to use the chat actively for questions and comments people want to make. And then I like to be my professorial, very strong uh, moderator. So I try to make use of the chat comments to raise questions once we have time for the Q&A with our speakers. Eventually, we might open the floor just for back and forth, but it's much more convenient if we don't interrupt the guys who are speaking and then do it in that fashion. So, welcome everybody. This is for those of you who've not been here before. We have a pretty much SBCAN a monthly South Coast and North Coast roundtables. This time we're doing a combined roundtable because the matters at hand are very much countywide. And if you're not aware of these events, please uh, sign up for SBCAN. Go to our website, join, and you'll be well informed constantly about what we're trying to do. So, as we said in the announcement for today, we noticed that that several of the leading progressive organizational uh, entities in our county have recently appointed new leaders, and I thought it would be cool to meet those people, have a chance for the people who come to the roundtable, all of whom are people who are themselves active in the community, to meet in person these new folks. Some of them are people that you probably know already, but not everyone will know everybody. And so that's the general idea. And we sort of asked the speakers to uh, talk about their own perspective on what the priorities and things they want people in the community to know about their organization, something about their own um, uh, path to becoming where they're now sitting in terms of these
Yeah.
organizations. But I wanted to start with the newest entity here, which is the UCSB Labor Center, which most people probably don't know about. And if we accomplish nothing else today, it will be to get you to be aware that this is very important, in my mind, new development in our community is now beginning to be in place. And its director, Carmen Rhodes, recently joined that. Carmen, welcome. So each of the guys who are speaking, we'll give you about 20 minutes to talk, and then we'll open for comments and questions, open the chat. Remember, if you just joined us, use the chat to raise questions rather than try to raise your hand while people are talking. So, Carmen, I don't quite see you in my screen right now, but you're there, right?
I'm here. Yes, I'm over here in this Brady Bunch square.
Yeah. Okay. So, welcome and welcome to the world of Santa Barbara as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dick, and thank you all for having me on this call today. I recognize some friends. It's great to see you, and I'm really looking forward to making some new friends and looking forward to getting to know you all and the work that you do in the coming months and coming years. So just a little bit about who I am, and then I can talk about some of the things that we're thinking about at the new Community Labor Center. So I moved to Santa Barbara actually about 10 years ago, when my husband got into a PhD program at UCSB. And we moved here. I come out of the labor movement and worked both in the Colorado labor movement and then nationally with the AFL-CIO and with SEIU. And when we moved to Santa Barbara, I was working for the national AFL-CIO. And a lot of the work that I've been focused on over the years has been in really building strategic partnerships between unions and community organizations so that we can win on issues that are well outside either of our weight classes. So growing up in Colorado and working with the Colorado labor movement, our union's presence was very small in Colorado, and we knew that it was not possible for us to win things like affordable housing or to raise wages for everybody in our minimum wage without working together with our community allies. And so a lot of my background comes from that orientation of really figuring out how unions and worker organizations and community organizations can work together to win things that are much bigger than any of us could win on our own. And I really believe that these kinds of coalitions can be really hard to maintain, but also can win some of the biggest things that are possible when we're all rowing together. So I have 3 kids that are at Harding Elementary School. After moving here, we became completely seduced by life on the Central Coast. And so I think we didn't know exactly what we were going to do when my husband finished grad school, but we decided that we never want to leave and that we really wanted to put some roots down here and really be a lot more rooted here. And so we really love it. And it's a beautiful place to call home. So just the one other thing I wanted to say about myself is that just before coming to lead this new community labor center, I spent almost 5 years working alongside Adi Barkan, who I think that some of you probably know or knew. He was a Santa Barbara-based activist who died from complications of ALS back in November of last year, and really used his own personal story navigating ALS and navigating our healthcare system to lift up what's broken about it. And he became a very large champion of Medicare for All, and I think also really helped people to understand the role of home care and caregiving in his life. At the time of his death, he completely relied on a team of home care workers to keep him alive, and that team allowed him to live at home with his wife and kids and continue to work and have a very a meaningful and fulfilling life right up until the end. And so I wanted you to know about that part of my experience too, because I'm bringing really a personal passion for home care and caregiving into this role at UCSB, as well as a passion for community and labor coalition building and organizing. So just a little bit about the new UCSB Community Labor Center. So I started full-time officially in June of this year. So I've only been on the job for about 3 months. And so we are still figuring a lot of things out. And I look forward to meeting with you all at one point or another. I've already met with some of you to inform what our thinking should look like, but I look forward to meeting with more of you to continue to inform that work. And so everything that I'm sharing today is just really kind of some of our initial thinking that's still in formation and needs to really get pinned down in the coming months and in the coming years. So our primary purpose and role is to strengthen the labor movement. So that is a core reason why we exist. And I think we have been created as part of a larger network of labor centers that are, some of which have been around for a long time. So some of you might know about the UCLA Labor Center or the UC Berkeley Labor Center or UC Merced. And there was a recognition that in order to build a strong labor movement and really improve the lives of all working people across the state of California, that an investment in developing labor centers at all the UCs was worthwhile and worthy. So I'm one of the new labor centers that was started in the last couple of years, but there are also nascent community labor centers at UC Irvine, UC Riverside, UC San Diego, UC Davis, and I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out, but UC Santa Barbara is a part of this growing network of labor centers across the state. And we are really coming from a place of recognizing that for a long time, we live in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, but for a long time, the rules have really been rigged against workers. And it has really, the rules have really favored the creation of great wealth that is consolidated amongst a very few number of people. And that income inequality is really kind of one of the core root causes, if not the root cause, why we can't have nice things. It's why we can't accomplish climate justice in the way that we all want to. It's why we can't have affordable housing for everyone in our community. It's why we still have farm workers living in squalor and living in poverty. It's why we have home care workers not able to make enough money to make the ends meet. And so our purpose in being inside this public institution is really to lift up the problem of income inequality and really lift up the workers and working people and find legitimate interventions that start to really rewrite those rules and shift that dynamic and build an economy that's going to work for everyone. And I also, I think, and I've been thinking about this, talking to Hazel and Lucas and EDER and Colin and others that, it's no secret. We all know we live in probably one of the most expensive counties in the entire country. There is so much wealth here. And so some of what I've been thinking a lot about is how do we as a community really tell the story of abundance? That there are abundant resources here, and there is enough for all of us. There's enough for us to pay workers well. We are smart enough and strategic enough that we can figure out how to solve our housing crisis. But if we are approaching it from a spirit of scarcity and that we have to just divide up the small number of resources that we collectively have access to now, we're not going to accomplish those things. We're not going to accomplish the big things that are really the challenges that our community and that working people are facing. And so some of the, I'm debating about, so there's some areas of interest where I think I'm already hearing a lot of kind of mutual solidarity between the community and between unions and worker organizations and places where we could start to apply this framing and bring the resources of the university to bear in a few places. So some of the areas of mutual interest that we're starting to look at are, of course, home care. We have home care workers in Santa Barbara County that are not making enough money to make the ends meet, do not have health care. And so we are really committed to figuring out how do we work together to make those really career supporting jobs, but also how do we expand home care to everyone that needs it in this county? And can we accomplish both things at the same time? Another area of interest, and we're really deferring to the leadership of CAUSE and MECOP and the United Farm Workers, is around agricultural workers and farm workers in our community. We have active organizing being led by farm workers and with strategic guidance from CAUSE and MECOP here in Santa Barbara County. And we are here for it. We are here to support and lift up that effort. We're here to help in any way we can to think about what it would really take to transform farm working and doing farm work for good in this region and in this country. Another area that we're starting to look at is around the creation of an offshore wind industry. That is, there's leases that have been awarded off the coast of Morro Bay, and those offshore wind developers that received the rights to develop offshore wind committed to almost $100 million in community benefits and workforce training for local residents, which we think is, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. And so we are really interested in unifying with environmental justice organizations, with tribal and indigenous communities, with unions, with environmental organizations to figure out what are those community benefits actually going to look like, and how do we make sure that the development of this industry truly benefits all of the region, all of the residents of this region, and that we don't end up with the situation, which if we don't do the interventions that we need to do, we might not have good paying jobs. It's not a given that those are going to be great paying jobs for local residents. If we don't intervene and actually insert what we believe needs to happen in that conversation, we could end up with people who come from all over the country to work for a few years to build those windmills, and who come in for 2 weeks at a time to go out and do the operations and maintenance. And I think that that would be a crying shame. And with so much federal money coming into California to prop up that industry, we have the right to contend for what that industry is actually going to look like and how those offshore wind developers are going to engage in our communities. So the final sector, and I don't know, I feel like I've already talked for 20 minutes, but just a few more things. So the other sector that we're looking at is that many of the unionized jobs here on the Central Coast are public sector jobs. So it's teachers, it's city and county workers, firefighters, people that work for higher education, or workers that are impacted by decisions made by the public sector, like our building and construction trades, who get a lot of work on public projects. And so I think that it would be really that these jobs used to be, good paying mid-wage jobs that were reliable for benefits. And what I'm hearing from folks that represent workers in this sector is that these jobs have not kept up with the cost of living in our region. And that unless we really look at, revenue and taxes, and we really kind of have a more comprehensive approach as a region, these jobs are going to become lower and lower and lower paying jobs. They will be very hard to fill jobs. We are going to see people moving away from our region to find other jobs in the public sector where they can afford to live there. And so this is something that I know many of you have been thinking a lot about, revenue and sexy things like tax policy. And so we are really looking forward to being a part of that conversation and really helping to bring worker perspectives to it. So the last thing that I'll say, which is just a little bit about our role in this ecosystem and what I think that the Community Labor Center can bring to these conversations. So one of our roles is, being at a higher education institution, is that we can bring applied research. And by applied research, I mean research that centers the voices and experiences of workers and of community residents and really lifts up what their experience is, validates what their experience is, but also lifts up their ideas for how we can solve some of these critical issues. We're also looking to do research that will be used on existing campaigns or to inform work that folks want to do in the future. So that's what I mean by applied research, that we really want to be a resource to really providing research that can support the work that we want to do overall. The second thing that we can do is to build the student to movement pipeline. So getting students from UCSB, and I hope from other higher education institutions throughout the Central Coast, getting students engaged directly in these fights. And so one of the things that we do, we have Labor Summer, which is an internship program where we place students with unions and worker-led organizations so that they really get an experience of working in the movement. We had 11 students that did the internship this summer. And I think all of them who were looking for work after they graduated got hired. One of our students got hired by CAUSE. Another one of our students got hired by the UFW. Another one got hired by the AFT up in Washington State. Several of our returning students got hired by the Labor Council to do temporary organizing work for the election. But we're really looking to build that pipeline of students into the movement. We're also looking to build solidarity of students on campus for these campaigns. So we have a bunch of work that we're doing to get students involved directly in the farm worker organizing that's happening in Santa Barbara County. We have an event coming up with Dolores Huerta visiting UCSB on October 24th. And we're partnering with CAUSE and MECOP and UFW and the Labor Council to have a solidarity event that's in conjunction with her visit, and something that's really action-oriented that gets students directly engaged in that fight and shows them how they can support and lift up the plight of farm workers in our region. And then the last thing that I'll say is that the other role that we can play is in providing education and training, and education and training that really builds power and the muscle and the skills of folks in our region so that we can accomplish our goals. And we have a training coming up next week that I just wanted to flag for you all. It's called Understanding and Analyzing Public Sector Budgets. And so for all of us who care about, looking at taxes and revenue and how is money being spent and what could we be doing to really make sure that workers are paid well, that we have the things that we need in our communities, this will be a really excellent workshop for being able to look at an audit of a city's audit and kind of understand what is the revenue picture of that city and where are there maybe hidden pots of money or different ways of looking at taxes and revenue. So we have actually closed registration for this training, but if you're really interested in attending, you can click on this link that I'm dropping in the chat, and there's contact information for my colleague about how you can join that training. But that's next Wednesday, September 25th from 12:30 to 3 here in Santa Barbara. So with that, I'm going to stop because I know I've definitely talked for 20 minutes and we have lots of other folks to hear from today.
Well, this is all very exciting. Thank you, Carmen. And so that link that you just posted, is that generally a good way to connect with you and with the Labor Center?
No, I'm going to also just put I'm going to put my email address here, and Dick, I can also send you contact information too, so that we can get it out to the broader SBCAN network.
That'd be great. And one thing that I know about that you didn't quite mention is there have been courses given in labor study kind of issues, and the Labor Center. Our friend Daraka Larmahal looks like he will be the full-time lecturer for that. So that's an important part of what you're doing, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for mentioning that. So that's part of our building the student to movement pipeline. I meant to mention that, but yes, the university has hired Daraka to lead our labor studies minor and to offer courses and help to get students really interested in labor studies. And so he's going to be starting this fall, and I could not be more thrilled to have him join the team.
Well, it looks like we're going to need to invite you back and other people from Labor Center for full-on discussion of several of these very important issues that you were highlighting. I'm excited and have been by this whole formation. One way to think about it is historically the university's been partnered with business in the business schools. They are a major asset to the corporate sector. The Labor Center don't balance that in terms of budget, but maybe in terms of morality and energy, there is a kind of balance that will be helpful. And this is funded by the state, right? That's really an important part of it. And those budgets are always under attack from the corporate sources. So
There we
well,
go.
part of our interest will be to try to maintain the Labor Center here over time. But it's a breakthrough, in my opinion, just as a faculty member, as well as a friend of labor. Thanks again to Carmen. I want to introduce you all to EDER, who is the newish director of the Fund for Santa Barbara, which is a friend to all of us. The organization is. I should say that our co-directors, Jeannie and Ken, have just been named as award winners at the Bread and Roses event, and so our partnership with the fund is cemented by that kind of recognition, which we're very grateful to. So, Ada, welcome to the roundtable, and take it.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for the kind introduction, and congratulations, Jeannie and Ken. We're super excited to celebrate you for Bread and Roses on the 6th of October. So thank you for all the hard work that you've done over the last couple decades. But I thought in coming in here, I'd introduce myself a little bit better. I've had the chance to meet most of you, not all of you, and I can start there. So my dedication for social justice really comes from my own lived experiences. I was born in Mexico, and at the early age of 4, my mom decided to immigrate to the States. And so I grew up on the west side in Santa Barbara. And for the longest time, I thought, I was American. And I knew English. I could do math better than all my peers. But it wasn't until I was 13, 14 that I realized that I was undocumented. After the 9/11 attacks, the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, I knew that I was an other, and that xenophobia was rampant, and that I also needed to protect myself. So I lived 2 lives, one at home, fearing deportation and just being separated from family and just looking out to make sure that we were safe, and then one at school. And that was really difficult. I feel like that really shaped my perspective of my life, of others, and really gave me the understanding of how to be tolerant of people and respectful of people and their own plights. Um, Fortunately, I had a lot of mentors in high school that really helped me see beyond my status as an immigrant here in America and as a person of color. I saw beyond my immigration status, beyond the xenophobia, and really started to think of myself as a community leader. So I did join Future Leaders of America when I was 13, 14. And I did my first site visit for the Fund for Santa Barbara for a grant we applied when I was about 15, 16. So I've had a connection to the fund for quite a while now. I won't say how many years, but it's been a good couple of years, and really kind of gave me the perspective and the introductions to social justice. In 2006, when I was a senior in high school, we led marches down Santa Barbara, and I think Doss Williams was a council member.
Probably.
We were walking out because of HR 4437, the anti-immigrant bill that was introduced in Washington. And I remember the day so vividly because it was raining, and we walked out. And that was really my introduction to social justice. I continued that at UCLA, where I went to school. I was a dreamer. And we partook in a lot of civil disobediences. Some of my mentors came from the UCLA Labor Center. So the Labor Center has always been an ally, super awesome. Mr. Ken Wong, Dr. Ken Wong from UCLA, really taught us the importance of increasing our voices, getting loud, and when we had to escalate campaigns. So my senior year at UCLA, we did a big demonstration on Wilshire and Veteran, and shut down the street for hours. I remember LAPD, UCPD, and I think CHP didn't know what to do with us because a bunch of little immigrant kids were shutting down the intersection, and they didn't know if they should arrest us with a bunch of helicopters, or they should just like let us go. Fortunately, we had really good guidance due to the Labor Center. And they were able to help us out and kind of, get our friends out of jail. The 9 folks were arrested. Um, but yeah, that was my introduction, and I've kept that commitment to social justice because of my own lived experiences. I came back to Santa Barbara and saw that a lot of the same things that were happening when I was a kid were still happening to a lot of young people. And I worked for Future Leaders for 10 years, for 7 years as their executive director to really mobilize young people to reimagine what their educational systems could look like through advocacy campaigns, through leadership. We didn't win all of them, but it really helped build a strong foundations for young people. And now many of them are in positions of power. It's really awesome to see that that network has really strengthened and come back to produce a lot of great social change. And so when Marcos decided to step down, I did consider applying for the Fund for Santa Barbara job, really out of curiosity of what it would be to expand grassroots efforts, momentum among the county of Santa Barbara and eventually the Central Coast. And so I came in with a vision to build a coalition of intergenerational and multiracial donors to strengthen our communities and strengthen our movements through grant making, through capacity building. And the first year, the first 10 months were a little rough. Where I think there's a lot of learning on my part, but there was also a lot of learning on what it meant to have an immigrant lead the fund. And so that has really kind of contributed to our growth, but also to our understanding of where we need to invest. And so over the next year, we're really going to focus on doubling down on grant making. How do we expand the grant making so that we're able to provide funding, meaningful funding to grassroots organizations? We're looking at trust-based philanthropy to reduce the application process and make sure that organizations like CAUSE, MyCop, Future Leaders, even the Labor Center can submit something really fast and not have to go through a lengthy process. We want to make sure that we're also able to build that capacity with new and emerging organizations in the county of Santa Barbara. And we've started to form statewide partnerships to also protect what we have. We also know that the right wing at the moment is targeting government-funded programs that support racial equity, for example. We get racial equity dollars from the county of Santa Barbara. And so we know that could be at risk depending what this November election, depending who is elected. And so we want to make sure that we protect the dollars and that we protect our communities. And so we're looking at different strategies, but we're also trying to make sure that we're well informed. So we are part of a coalition with the California Black Freedom Fund to understand what the legal challenges have been. We know that some have been successful, and programs like ours could be targeted. But other than that, we're also working on capacity building, leadership development, and continuing to make sure that progressive organizations in the county of Santa Barbara, many of whom are often overlooked by traditional philanthropy, have the resources and the monies and the funds to enact social change in our own backyard. And so that's going to be our mission over the next 12 months. We are also partners with CAUSE and MyCop with some civic engagement work. And so we support their effort by being their fiscal sponsors. Later, we want to be able to develop a civic engagement fund. We know that there's a lot of work to be done in that field, but we want to make sure that smaller organizations are able to engage in the electoral process, nonpartisan, of course, and that we can help train them up and be able to expand the number of voters that are contacted, the number of people who are reached out to. And so that's cool projects. I know one of my board members is here, so surprise, we'll get there. with our Civic Engagement Fund. And lastly, we'll continue to do our fundraising. We do have Bread and Roses coming up on the 6th of October. That's our big celebration. But we want to continue that momentum. We've reconnected with a lot of donors who had lapsed, but we're also trying to build a bigger umbrella. We want to be able to say that we're a coalition of intergenerational, multiracial donors, and the values that we share are very much similar. And we can make a better community if we unite. So thank you all. I think that's it for now.
Well, why don't you say a bit more the specifics about Bread and Roses in case people have not yet registered to go. Tell them what to do and what's going to happen, what will happen there, and where it is, and all the rest of it.
So here's the link. It's Sunday, October 6th at Santa Barbara City College. It's a big celebration. We'll have food, we'll have drinks, but most importantly, we'll honor our people who have done amazing work, including Jeannie and Ken. But we're also honoring Future for Lompoc Youth. They've been undertaking a big project lately to pass a bond measure in the city of Lompoc to make sure that their schools are up to date. We've been working with them for a couple of years now, but the measure is on the ballot now. We want to highlight their work. They're doing some canvassing. They're going door to door, and we're hopeful. I think when they put it on the ballot last 2 years ago, it only lost by 100 votes. And so we're hoping that they are able to build capacity with some of the grant dollars we provided, but that they win. Lompoc needs it. And we're hoping that we can celebrate their accomplishments.
Well, great. It occurred to me, you mentioned the capacity building function that the fund does. And I would imagine that people know about the grants that the fund provides, but I'm not sure they know about what you can do for them apart from actual money. And that might be something you want to spell out a little bit more.
Yeah, we have our capacity building manager, Kathleen, has been amazing in working with a couple of different organizations to be able to give nonprofits the tools necessary to succeed. So we do have different workshops throughout the year, ranging from financial literacy for nonprofits to advocacy to be able to build their own internal efforts and strengthen their organizations. And so those workshops are year round. We were going to have an ballot endorsement workshop. Unfortunately, we had to change things up this year, partly due to family emergency for some of our staff members so we couldn't make it, but we continue to help the nonprofit sector in building our capacity. We also do one-on-one coaching. If folks need additional support with their grant application, we're more than happy to help them and review their grant application. I think lastly, we've also partnered with the McCune Foundation to support with the Social Justice Academy. There's a lot of organizations out there who need a little bit more coaching, a little bit more support, and the Social Justice Academy does just that. Through an experiential model, they're able to grow their assets and really understand grassroots organizing. And they also have coaches. Some of you are on the line here, and really coach grassroots organizers through campaigns and their efforts. And so that's a really exciting project that it's funded by the McCune Foundation and really underscores the importance of building capacity, people capacity in the county of Ventura and Santa Barbara.
I didn't know about the Social Justice Academy, so so it's okay for people to call the fund and say, I need help.
Yeah, call us. Our website, our doors are always open. I'm definitely more than happy to have some coffee or lunch. I like to eat. So yeah, call us.
All right. Well, thanks again, EDER, and all of the people at the fund who are doing all of this work that we all mutually depend on and help to support. Bread and Roses, October 6th. Honor Ken and Jeannie by going. That's an added incentive for SBCANers to go to that. And this is a new location. We're always interested in where the Bread and Roses is actually happening. And so maybe this will be a new experience. Thanks. So we'll have time, I think, for some Q&A, but I wanted to introduce the new cause co-directors, and Lucas and Hazel are with us. We haven't really figured out how you're going to divide your time, but why don't you guys take it? Lucas, Hazel, whichever wants to go first.
Right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. It's great to see old friends here and new faces too. My name is Hazel Davalos. I'm one of our co-executive directors with Cause, along with Lucas. So yes, we will figure out how to split up this time. But a little quick tidbit about me, and then I'll just jump into our mission, and we'll talk more about the issue areas that we work on. But I grew up in Santa Maria, local Santa Barbara County resident. I actually got my start in social justice work through FLA. I'm an FLA alumni, got invited to camp coming out of 8th grade. EDER won't say, but we both went to camp the same year, 2003. So almost 20 years ago now. And that, getting to go to a Latino leadership camp like that was just such an important start for me. And then shortly after, I was recruited to Pueblo, which is a Santa Barbara County sort of counterpart or organization to Cause that ultimately merged with Cause in 2013. And same activated by those big 2006 immigrant rights marches. And I think for me personally, and also I think why the organization resonated so much for me was, the old marching chant, hoy marchamos, mañana votamos, right? Today we march, tomorrow we vote. And so that May we marched, and by that fall, I was really excited to be involved in, as a precinct captain, a high schooler, walking and knocking on doors to elect our first progressive Latina to the Santa Maria City Council. And since then I was hooked. Lucas and I joke we're kind of lifers. So I actually went from being a youth committee member to an admin assistant with the organization in 2007 and have continued ever since. And I also think it speaks to really our leadership pipeline and youth leadership development work at Cause as well. And also would love to give a shout out to SBCAN. Thank you. I got the pleasure to serve on the SBCAN board for several years, along with Dick and other folks here. So always really have appreciated SBCAN's work and the way, especially, we've been able to collaborate as organizations that really get that important intersection of environment and housing and figuring out how to meet all those needs together. So yeah, I'll just jump into, our mission for those of you who aren't as familiar with Cause. So Cause is a long acronym, stands for Central Coast Alliance, United for a Sustainable Economy. We are an economic, social, and environmental justice organization. As far as the issue areas we work on, and Lucas and I will dive deeper on that in a bit, they include immigrant worker power, housing justice, which is really around tenant organizing, renter protections, and then also environmental justice. And we really try to apply an intersectional lens to all of that. We are a base building organization. And so as far as our tactics and our strategy, grassroots community organizing is very much at the center of what we do. And so in the 5 chapter cities that we are in and we have offices in and staff in, we have committees, whether made up of Spanish-speaking adults, high school students, and a couple of our cities' young adults that identify problems in their communities, workplace, schools, and identify what campaigns, how they want to solve those problems. And our organizers really do their best to help give them the tools so they can make that happen. The 5 cities that we're based in are Santa Maria, Santa Barbara, Ventura, Santa Paula, and Oxnard. And we're very, very excited. Next year, we're beginning an expansion to the city of Lompoc. And so, yes, we're here in Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. Along with our grassroots organizing, we also use approaches around policy research, comms, and also civic engagement. Lucas will share in this presentation more about our electoral work, but it's worth noting now CAUSE is our 501c3 organization, and we also have a sister organization, sort of a political arm called Cause Action, which is a 501c4 organization with the ability to endorse candidates on a working families platform. And so we really focus on mobilizing immigrant, young voters, first-time voters out to the polls. And so that's definitely what's keeping us busy these days. So I guess I'll go ahead and I can pass it to you, Lucas, if you want to talk about, more about yourself in a couple of years. You could throw it back to me on immigrant worker power, however,
Yeah, thanks, Hazel. Hi, everyone. Lucas ZUCKER, I'm the co-executive director with Hazel at CAUSE. And I, like Hazel, got involved with CAUSE when I was very young. First volunteered when I was 13. I always joke, unlike Hazel, she was a little bit more responsible of a young person than I was, and was very dedicated and committed throughout high school, as a youth with Pueblo. I volunteered a little bit, then kind of, was never to be seen for a few years, and then got more involved in college. And so came back here to the area 2 different summers during college, and worked interning and on staff, temporary staff for the summer. I went to school at UC Berkeley, studied political economy, but ultimately decided to come back here to the Central Coast after I graduated. I moved here when I was 13, and so the Bay Area was kind of also partly my home. I spent a lot of my childhood in Oakland. When my mom was a student, and then she got a job here at UCSB, and that's why we moved here. But I grew up in Ventura, and came back and started working for CAUSE right away. Started as a youth organizer and researcher and communications back when CAUSE was a lot smaller and scrappy and grassroots, and we had a lot of different jobs. And then went on to become our policy director. And so Hazel and I were kind of counterparts, organizing director, policy director, until Maricela transitioned out, and that's when we took on the co-director role just over 2 years ago. So that's a bit about me. Although I still live and work in Ventura, I've done a lot of work in Santa Barbara County for all of our regional campaigns. Particularly done a lot around redistricting and working to help draw maps for city councils, school boards, county supervisors, state legislative offices all throughout the region. Worked a lot on some of the tenant organizing and protection campaigns in Santa Barbara, including Just Cause and other tenant protections we've passed in recent years. Now working a lot on the that kind of farm worker living wage campaign that Hazel, I'm sure can speak more to. I'll talk a little bit more about our kind of housing and environmental justice work. CAUSE's 3 program priorities that Hazel mentioned. Housing, really think of it as kind of 2 prongs. First and foremost, we organize tenants, as Hazel mentioned, and here we are in this horrible housing crisis, and the Central Coast has really some of the worst rent burden in the entire nation, when you compare kind of the high cost of living here to the low wages in industries like tourism, hospitality, and agriculture. And so tenants have been organizing with CAUSE for many years around stronger eviction protections, as well as a rent stabilization, which we've successfully passed in Oxnard, and are hoping we'll be able to move forward soon in Santa Barbara, as well as a couple cities in Ventura County, and also looking at right to counsel, which is exciting that we partner with Santa Barbara Tenants Union to get the city of Santa Barbara to make an initial investment in kind of a pilot project for tenants being able to have access to legal counsel, which is a huge challenge of even when you have these great protections, right? 90% of landlords have a lawyer, 90% of tenants don't, and that makes it hard to kind of enforce the laws. And so all those tenant protections are kind of important to immediately protect folks from the storm, right? Of the it's that shelter during this housing crisis. But we also know in the long run we need to address some of the root causes of the housing crisis, and that's really getting more housing off the speculative market, more housing to be, run by, public agencies like the Housing Authority, nonprofits like People Self-Help Housing, permanently affordable housing that's community controlled, and deeply affordable. And not subject to the whims of some big corporation coming and buying up your building and evicting you any moment. And to do that, we need a lot deeper, more challenging systemic change. I got to go on a really inspiring trip earlier this year to Vienna and Berlin to learn about social housing, where in Vienna 60% of the housing is government or nonprofit or heavily regulated kind of private and subsidized housing. And really believe that that type of thing is absolutely possible here. We are just as capable of building the kind of high quality affordable housing, and really do. If you look at the housing that's being built by our housing authority, by nonprofits like People's, we just invest a lot less money into it, and have a lot less of the political will for it, and don't use our public lands in the same way, and land use regulations, right? And so I think that a lot of that comes to, we need to pass revenue measures, and we'll take major ballot measures in the future. We've been building this Ventura County Housing Coalition to pass a housing bond in Ventura County, and are looking at similar efforts in Santa Barbara County. And it takes bringing together kind of a big tent, and maybe sometimes bigger than we're used to working with, right? Bringing together the building trades unions who work to build housing, right? Bringing together environmental organizations who are sometimes used as the boogeyman and blamed for the housing crisis, unfairly, right? As well as even maybe some moderate elements of some of the more conservative folks, when you need to pass something like a countywide ballot measure, and win across, including in North County, right? The other major policy area I do a lot of work on is environmental justice. We've got a great campaign in Santa Maria, led by our youth there, where we've had a lot of environmental justice work in areas like Oxnard for many years, but it's kind of been less of a I think less of an issue talked about in Santa Barbara County, and there's certainly such a strong environmental presence, but environmentalism, we know, is still too often associated with the affluent, the Tesla drivers, the whatever, right? Versus some of the work that CAUSE and SBCAN work on, of addressing the disproportionate pollution burden on communities like the Santa Maria Valley and North County, of issues like the toxic pesticides that are sprayed in our fields, oil drilling, right, and refining in our communities, and the lack of access to green space. And so we had a great victory that's still being implemented and working long term around the getting that Santa Maria River levee trail out to Guadalupe and the coast, to increase coastal access and access to healthy outdoor recreation, working to strengthen. The state has kind of weak pesticide buffer zones around schools that we did a lot of work as part of a statewide coalition to pass in 2014, but want to see those strengthened. The biggest loophole is that they're not allowed to spray during school hours, but then they just spray at night, and those pesticides linger in the air, and students are still impacted. And so working to get kind of stronger notification of students and parents and school communities as a stepping stone to really ultimately strengthening those buffer zones. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick here, I'm talking nasally. And then as Carmen mentioned, I think we've got a really exciting long-term effort around offshore wind, this huge new clean energy sector in our region. I mean, how often do you see basically a structural economic shift in your region, like a whole new industry that's potentially employing thousands of people, and has the potential to displace some of the fossil fuel power plants? But we know there's challenging issues around, conflicts with Chumash National Marine Sanctuary, conservation issues, port expansion that can impact communities, adjacent to ports, which are overwhelmingly low-income communities of color. And so we need to make sure that offshore wind is done responsibly. Last thing I'll speak to is some of our election work. We have a long history, both CAUSE and our C4 CAUSE Action Fund, that's able to endorse candidates, but has to be financially independent from CAUSE. of working to get out the vote among Latino, working class, immigrant communities, youth, tenants in our region. We know that's one of the biggest challenges here. We've got our region is majority people of color, but when it comes to who actually turns out to the ballot, overwhelmingly white, homeowner, wealthy, and that skews a lot of our politics. And so we work both as Cause and Cause Action Fund to get out the vote. So Cause is doing a lot of work right now on Prop 5 to allow local communities to pass housing bonds with a 55% vote, which will open up a lot of potential opportunities locally if we can pass that one. That one's super close. And then no on Prop 36 was the mass incarceration initiative to roll back some of California's landmark criminal justice reforms. And our Cause Action Fund is doing a lot of work to support local city council candidates. And then as a collaborative, we've worked to develop 805 United, which is a new regional Central Coast civic engagement table with Cause, FLA, MyCop, and fiscally sponsored by the Fund for Santa Barbara. That is this year running the largest voter engagement program in our region, focusing on mobilizing voters of color, doing 18,000 voter contacts, 9,000 out of an office in Oxnard, 9,000 out of an office in Santa Maria. This is really some of the largest scale, voter engagement, we've seen in Santa Maria, which we're really excited about, being able to deepen that voter engagement capacity in North County and build the voter engagement capacity of other organizations, because we don't, for many years, it really was, Cause and Cause Action Fund doing this work, and FLA has added a lot in the last few years of that capacity, but we want to build capacity of organizations like MyCop. We have such a growing population of now, Indigenous and Mixteco folk who actually are now eligible to vote as more kind of youth turn 18 and things like that, of maybe undocumented parents. So really excited about 805 United, and that's going to be focused on Prop 5 and affordable housing in our region. Maybe I'll pass it back to Hazel to talk about immigrant worker power and our farm worker living wage campaign.
Well,
Yeah, thanks, Lucas. Yeah, so our third issue area and focus is immigrant worker power. And the very, very exciting campaign that we're moving in that area is trying to get a higher minimum wage for farm workers in Santa Barbara County. We're advocating for a $26 an hour farm worker living wage, and we're asking the county supervisors to move that. To give a little bit of a history and background on the issue of immigrant worker power in the region, and then jump more into the details of that and how you can get involved. I think it was about a decade ago, 2014, 2015, our organization decided to take a step towards formally organizing farm workers. Farm workers are one of the least, I think, unionized workforces, right, that we have in our region for a number of reasons. And we're really excited. The United Farm Workers is just now starting to hire staff here. But historically, we haven't had that presence in Santa Maria, despite being a really big farm working community. And so I remember being an organizer in 2015, doing house meetings and hearing from folks, what are the problems you're facing, right? And hearing issues of labor violations, low wages, supervisors intimidating folks, all of those things, and feeling it was so hard as an organization to see that and say, we're not a union, we're not able to do that. And so we decided to take a step and say, okay, what can we do as a community organization to lift up labor standards for farm workers in our region? And we found a few ways to do that. So initially, we launched, at that point, we launched a research project. We collected over 300 surveys from farm workers in the Santa Maria Valley and across the county. And we're able to present that sort of as evidence to the county around the need to have the county step in and do something, right? There's a lot of different state agencies tasked with, clean water and bathrooms, discrimination in the workplace, all those things, right? But it's like a different agency depending on the violation, and most of them don't have offices here or anywhere near here. And so we really looked to the county supervisors and said, hey, we need some sort of local office to be able to hold folks' hands, get them connected with these agencies, collect this data. And so at that time, we had requested sort of a farm worker resource center. to be kind of a one-stop shop hub that could do that work. At the time, our county was having some real budget woes, and so that took us some time. But we were very, very excited when in 2022 that office officially opened in Santa Barbara County. We were able to get one in Ventura County in 2017, and that really came at the end of a lot of important work we did during the pandemic in collaboration with the public health department. So during that time, we really needed, we really wanted to help the public health department figure out how to help keep farm workers safe. We heard about so many outbreaks in the workplace and also in shared guest worker housing. And so we were able to develop a farm worker hotline where workers would call the county and ask about their rights to get sick time, get a template letter to request sick time, because there were supervisors not letting people take their sick time they had access to. And then the kind of culmination of that, we were so glad that this wasn't just during the pandemic, but we had this resource center that's continued on. But I think what also is really important to note in this timeline, in 2021 during the pandemic, ever since then, we started to see a big uptick in farm worker organizing and sort of organic strikes happening out in the fields. And so every season, like clockwork, since 2021, we've seen workers walk out of the fields. Often someone will put it on Facebook Live, and our organizers will be able to hear about it and figure out how we can support. And so over the last several years, CAUSE and MICOP have really partnered and stepped in and tried to support workers and been successful in getting wage increases. But what's been challenging about that is often those wage increases have been temporary, maybe just for the end of that season, and then the next season starts, and it's not the systemic long-term wins that they could get through, say, a union contract, right? And so 2 years ago, both of our organizations, CAUSE and MICOP, sat down and said, we need to figure out what is the long-term way we can win on this, a more sustainable way we can win on this. And so that's when we decided to try to move a farm worker living wage ordinance. I mean, coming back to workers, hearing that that's the #1 priority for folks, especially in the Central Coast region where housing costs are just skyrocketing. And so we've been organizing farm workers for the last 2 years, and we launched formally in April of this year. We released a report called Harvesting Dignity. Actually, Lucas, we should totally drop the link to it in the chat if we have it. Really laying out research around low wages and how that's impacting farm worker families, and how burdened farm worker families are when it comes to keeping up with costs in our region on the wages they're earning. On average, a farm worker earns $17.42 an hour in our region, but that it's really important to note there's a lot of seasonal fluctuations in agriculture. Work is not consistent. There's often 2 to 3 months every winter where families are going without work. And so we are now approaching, and on May Day this year, farm workers in Santa Maria marched the streets calling for a $26 an hour farm worker living wage. We passed right by the Strawberry Festival, where in our city, right, the profits and gains of growers and agriculture industry are celebrated. But what about farm workers, and what are they gaining, right? Things you'll find in that report, for example, is that the average strawberry box you'll find in the grocery store might cost you $4, right? But in the end, the average farm worker is receiving 28 cents of that $4, right? So we know that there's room to be able to, I think, as Carmen said, there's abundance, right? And there is a pathway that, agriculture can continue to be, to succeed in our region, but farm workers can succeed as well, and prosper as well. So yes, there's a petition now in the chat. We'd love for you to sign that, spread the word about that. You may have seen in recent media coverage, we're now going public and making these requests formally to the county supervisors. The county has just voted to develop an ad hoc committee to explore the issue. And now the offices of Joan Hartman and Dos Williams are jointly coordinating on an informational hearing. We don't have a date on that yet, but that'll likely be late October, early November, where they'll have sort of a panel set up, hear from both sides, and then it's really our job to turn out as many people as we can to speak in favor of farm workers being able to earn higher wages. And I think I'll just end by saying, that so much of this has been inspired. I think it's not a coincidence that this has come after the pandemic, where agricultural workers were named as essential. And despite that, are being treated and paid as if they're disposable, not being valued for the high skilled labor that they're bringing, but also the high risk.
Right.
The high risk labor. The reason we're advocating for $26 an hour is because we are comparing farm work and the physical injuries and death rates in farm work. And we know that in Santa Barbara County, 2 workers died on their work sites last fall because of the heavy machinery used in the fields. And so when we look at other trades like construction and trucking that endure these similar levels of risks, they are earning 25, 26 an hour. And so that's the reason we're going for that number. And we really hope to count on all of your support. And we're just so glad the UCSB Labor Center has come. There couldn't have been a better time to be able to provide, that academic support and research to this cause.
I imagine that the Dolores Huerta event is going to tie in very well with this work that you're talking about now.
Absolutely.
And judging from what happened at the county board, there's going to be a big farm owner mobilization to prevent this this wage issue from being realized, right? And a lot of division within the county board probably on that. So it's going to be
That's right. Supervisor Bob Nelson also happens to be the chair of the Grower Shippers Association, the organization most committed to trying to keep farm worker wages down.
All right. So you guys are hiring leadership positions. You want to say anything about that? Because that's those are major positions within cause, right?
Do you want to share, Lucas?
Sure, yeah. So when Hazel and I took over as co-executive directors, we kind of held on as acting organizing director and policy director has been our old roles, and had some associate directors. We wanted to give some time to help kind of build up our team, before fully filling those roles and just really having kind of a phased gradual transition. So now at the end of that 2-year transition period, we're now hiring for organizing director and policy director. Really excited to be expanding our senior staff as our team has put in a lot of hard work to kind of make that transition work. And so if you know anybody, these are great kind of senior leadership positions in our region that don't come around very often, for experienced campaigners and folks who know organizing. We also, I don't know, Hazel, should I share about the Santa Barbara as well?
Santa Barbara. Oh yeah, probably.
Yeah. This is maybe not yet public information, but many of you know Frank Rodriguez, who's been with us for a very long time in our Santa Barbara office. He has just accepted a position with the McCune Foundation, which is really exciting, and just building up the ecosystem of our region. And so it's definitely a loss to us because he's just been a long-time staff member at Cause, 9 years with the organization, and just synonymous with Cause in Santa Barbara. But we know he'll be part of our movement still, and we'll get to work with him all the time. And so that position will be open. So on the other end of the spectrum, if kind of that's a more kind of junior position, although open to folks who have a little bit more experience as well. But someone to be our next Santa Barbara policy advocate as well. So keep an eye out for us. Staffing drives so much of our success as an organization. Maybe don't go spreading the Frank information, until he's kind of making the public announcement himself. But I know we're within friends here, so
yeah. And then one thing I think worth noting. So Frank is heading to the McCune Foundation, and the McCune Foundation really prioritizes hiring organizers because of they're really carrying out the Social Justice Academy. And I want to share a little bit more about that because a big centerpiece of the Social Justice Academy is actually an annual 3-day community organizing training. Cause we provide the training, and the McCune Foundation and the Social Justice Academy provide the staffing and logistical support and recruitment to make all of that work. And so I want to mention it here because we do it annually, 3 days. I think our next one will likely be located in Ventura. and probably in the spring, I'm assuming, of next year. And so if any of you or organizations that are interested in taking steps towards doing community organizing, but need the training and support and models for that, we really encourage you to keep an eye out for that training.
Well, I'm glad this is the way we wound things up. This being the need to have organizers fully operating in the community. And I was very moved by this whole session because it made me realize how blessed we are as a region with the quality, the talent, the energy, and the commitment of the folks that you just heard from. And each of these people represent further staff people who are working now full-time in these different organizational settings for social justice and for a better world. And I'm so moved because I've been here for half a century, and I think this is one of our achievements. We've actually gotten this small army of wonderful people who've committed themselves to the community in these ways, and we're able to get the resources together to make this happen. And I think that, I'm kind of proud about this. I'm hoping we can get through this goddamn election in a positive way, because in the battles that we're talking about today are the ones we really want to fight, not the kind of battles that are being played out with the MAGA movement and what they represent being the thing that we have to be concerned about. Great to be able to fight for a really fair wage, a living wage, for better economic conditions for our region, for a social housing agenda, for the fascinating thing you guys have been talking about with the wind power industry moving in here and what that could mean. This points to a difficult set of battles, but it's the kind of future that we've been fighting for is possible there. You can taste it. And I say that, I'm still kind of hopeful even after all this and after reaching this age. So you're the guys who give me that kind of hope. So we have some time for Q&A. I don't know that there's any particular questions in the in the chat that I want to highlight. I know that Gail Osherenko asked the question about Prop 36, and Cause mentioned in the chat that they are working on that as one of the election issues. Gail, do you want to say anything about Prop 36? If you're still with us? I don't know if she's...
No, she's not with us anymore.
All right, well, we're going to put this on the agenda at the SBCAN board meeting to take a position on this particular measure. Lucas, do you have anything to say about it substantively?
Sure, just somewhat I mentioned earlier is that this is the mass incarceration measure. It would undo Prop 47, which we worked hard with many other organizations to pass 10 years ago in 2014. And we've seen there was so much energy and momentum, right, for criminal justice reform and racial justice just a few years ago. I mean, it almost like feels like crazy whiplash since 2020. And all of a sudden we've seen this rightward lurch, particularly on this issue towards this, kind of tough on crime and punishment, lock them up kind of mentality that we know has failed in California. And we've seen the results, right? Taking away money from our schools and education and other public priorities to, dump money into, a failing prison system, right? And that's exactly what Prop 36 would do. It would take money out of school dropout prevention programs, mental health programs, addiction treatment programs, and put that money into locking up more people and building more prisons, right? And we've absolutely got to fight it. We know that this is not this proposition will be seen as kind of a referendum on California's progress, right? The news story potentially on election day will be, look, even in super progressive California, you know, they're moving rightward on issues of community safety, right? And so it's why we're absolutely committed to, you know, to no on Prop 36. And yeah, and then I mentioned as well, Prop 5 is, you know, it's important for us to be also talking about the aspirational vision of, right, like people in our communities are seeing increased homelessness, they're seeing, you know, the challenges that are going on, right? And so like, what's our vision as progressives for, and that's, you know, investing in social housing and affordable housing, and that's the biggest thing, pushing people onto our streets and you know, causing so many challenges in our communities, right? And Prop 5 is going to allow local communities to invest in affordable housing, you know, and build quality permanent housing for our communities.
But while we're on this topic, a related local measure is the city of Santa Barbara. Measure I is a sales tax increase. It's not the kind of tax revenue that we would favor in an ideal situation, but the city council put this on the ballot, of a half-cent sales tax increase. And the intention there is not just to support in general the city budget, although that is one intention, but to provide a revenue source for the newly established Affordable Housing Trust Fund in the city. And if we don't pass this, that trust fund itself will be endangered because there's only a one-time appropriation to support it. That trust fund is already becoming a resource for the housing authority to build social housing, affordable housing in the community. So all the housing coalition groups that are advocating for affordable housing are supporting Measure I, and we will be trying to reach people with the arguments for it. It's not as regressive as it could be because a lot of the basic needs of people are not going to be subject to that tax, or are not subject to that tax. A lot of the revenue would actually come from tourism, not from local consumers. So and the outcome could be a real boost to the affordable housing situation. So just thought I'd mention that. There's a lot of other probably electoral issues we could mention. Well, we have a little time, and rather than just rely on the chat, are there any things people want to ask any of our speakers and or make announcements that will contribute now, since we have everybody here who, you know, all these people from the community are here, things you want people to know about, just signify by using the appropriate Zoom mechanism for raising your hand, and we'll try to reach you. I don't know why, but I'm not getting the full display of people here that I should get, but so Jeannie.
Thank you. A couple of announcements I wanted to make. November 22nd, SBCAN will be honoring Senator Monique Limon, Onya Brown, I'm not saying that right, Onya Brown Lawson, and Gabe Escobedo. That's going to be at the UCSB Faculty Club, and we'll be sending out information probably later today. So if you're not on our sign up list, please sign up and you'll get that information. And then in late October, we're going to be doing some restoration work in the Santa Maria riverbed. And we're looking for volunteers to help with that, especially, you know, it'd be nice to get some youth out there, probably some young adults, people who are in good physical shape to do some planting, but you don't have to be in great shape. You can, you know, old people like me and Ken can also do it. So, but we're looking for a variety of people, hopefully people, you know, Santa Maria area, but it can be anywhere if you want to drive in. And those are a couple of things we've got going on at SBCAN.
And Dick, I put it in the chat, but the City Council's Housing Crisis Ad Hoc Committee, which is Council Member Oscar Gutierrez, Alejandro Gutierrez, and Kristen Sneddon, have been synthesizing all of the feedback and insights and expertise from their stakeholder interviews And we'll be sharing that as part of a community forum for findings and policy recommendations to be prioritized moving forward to address the affordable housing crisis. That forum will take place on October 14th and will include kind of facilitated breakout sessions to keep our limited time together as productive as possible. But I put the registration link and information details in the chat.
That's a very important thing. There's so much happening in the housing domain on so many different levels with a lot of complexity. So we in SBCAN are in this region, especially in the South Coast, we're actively involved. Leave Women Voters is a very important leadership group around these issues now, as well as Cause and several other people are at that table quite actively. So I think we've been waiting for a long time for that committee to materialize with some positive results. And so thank you very much for that information. Okay, Catherine Henry, Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, so mindful of keeping things C3, but there's been some prop discussions. Just wanted to let everyone know the Planned Parenthood Central Coast Action Fund is working on the Yes on 3 and Yes on 35 campaigns. If anyone is interested, more information about like door knocking, text banking, all that good stuff, especially the Yes on 35, super, super important for keeping community health centers such as Planned Parenthood, as well as other Medi-Cal providers funded. People tend to see the word tax and get really stressed. It's not actually a tax on taxpayers, it's on managed care organizations. But so there's been definitely some recent growing opposition to that. And the Action Fund is going to be doing a lot of work to have people kind of working on that. So if anyone's interested, I know everyone here loves canvassing and text banking, but we're going to be working on that as well.
Thank you. So Jana Patchen, hi.
Hi, everyone. First, I just want to say thanks to everyone who spoke today. It was really wonderful to get to listen to y'all. I work for the Santa Lucia chapter of the Sierra Club, so I'm actually based in SLO County, but we're neighbors, and so much of what y'all do is interconnected. I am amplifying a call to action about the Las Flores pipeline system off of Santa Barbara that caused the Refugio oil spill back in 2015. We just got word that the state could be issuing a waiver as soon as today or early next week that would essentially allow the restart of this pipeline that caused the 2015 oil spill. So we're in the process of getting out this urgent call to action that was just brought to me in the last 24 hours or so, and to some other Santa Barbara advocates in the last couple days. So if you have time and would like to call, today is the day to do it. We're hoping they don't slip that waiver approval in like on a Friday today, end of the week, and trying to get it by without environmental review or public participation in that process. So definitely huge impacts for all y'all. And if you're able to engage, we'd love to have you call today. Thanks.
Thank you. So you want to repeat what exactly where to call, what
So I just put in the chat a link. Thank you, Dick, for making me repeat my call to action. I just put a link in the chat to the Google Doc action alert that has a script and the phone numbers to call. The two state officials we're asking everyone to call is Secretary Wade Crowfoot from the California Natural Resources Agency, as well as Chief Hosler, who is the Cal Fire Pipeline Safety Division specialist who is going to be issuing the waiver. And so the phone numbers and scripts for that are in the Google Doc in the chat. And I'll also put my email there. If anybody has questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you very much. That's very important. Lisa Thornhill.
Hi, I am part of the League of Women Voters, and I wanted to let everybody know that our forums are coming up. We have a city council in Santa Maria on September 24th. We have Lompoc School Board on September 26th. And we have the City Council and Mayor in Lompoc on October 3rd. We have Mayor Candidate Forum in Santa Maria on October 4th, and a Santa Maria Board on October 7th, and then Solvang for Mayor, October 23rd. And I wanted to thank everybody. You guys just work so hard. And I can tell you, my daughter works in DC, and one thing she tells me is the country does continue to look towards California to see what we're up to and what we're planning and what's working. So keep up the good work, and we do rub off a little bit elsewhere. So thank you.
That's a very good point. I just want to make a comment about all those races going on. I don't know if any of you were at the Labor Day picnic, but there were a whole string of candidates for all of the kind of offices that Lisa just was alluding to. I was very impressed. These are a tremendous number of young, very dynamic people stepping up to run for these offices. I just felt very encouraged. Maybe I'm kidding myself. I sometimes wonder that when I feel hopeful, are you kidding yourself? But I feel quite the opposite. I think we really have some human resources and energies coming together that can really make a difference if we can hang in there for the next few months. I'm just really thinking the next few months will tell us a lot about what our future is going to look like. I just want to be very grateful to the people who you heard from today. Grateful that you came to us, but of course, much more grateful for what you are doing and the organizations that you are building, that we are all dependent on, mutually dependent on each other. And we have a kind of working coalition in practice in our region that spans not only Santa Barbara, but includes, Ventura as well, maybe even San Luis Obispo to some extent. This is all what I want to say, sources of hope. Anybody have any final comment? If not, I think we've reached our point of adjournment. Thanks very much for being here, and stay tuned to everybody. Take care. Hang in there.
Thank you all.
Thank you
And
so
don't forget to make sure you have all your voter reg updated.
Thank you, Sarah.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye.
Bye.